All right, so this is Resolving Conflict. My name is Sister Amoryn Mund. I'm from Ogden, Utah. I'm a graduate from BYU-Idaho. I graduated here in 2007 with a degree in elementary education. I taught elementary school for 4.5 years in Davis County, Utah, and I'm now a stay-at-home mom. I also manage some storage units and a car wash and teach for Pathway part-time. I teach GS 120, and yes, I'm very busy. And I proposed this to the committee, and they picked me, and I do not know why. So there must be something in it for all of us. Maybe it's just I guess I should have given you that. Maybe it's just that learning model. There's something for me to learn here in this. Can you hear me okay? All right, I'll just keep talking now. All right, so we're going to talk about resolving conflict, and with that, there's the 5 A's, and the 5 A's were given to me when I was working in the elementary school, specifically for when we have parents who call on the phone and say, "Hey, my child, da 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 da," and it was a way that we could communicate with them without raising more conflict, trying to keep it on the teacher-parent level instead of taking it to administration. And I saw it worked in elementary school. I've used it with my husband, so there must be something in there that works, right? I've used it in Pathway. I've only taught 2 semesters. I'm not teaching this semester, but I will be next, and it worked. So the one time I've had to use it in Pathway. And I've read about other examples, and so that's why I'm sharing with it with you guys today. Okay, as we move through this, I want you to ponder these things. Conflict resolution. I was thinking maybe we should have named it something different. Fluffy and good, so more people would come, because conflict resolution is a little bit scary. We don't like conflict. We like to avoid conflict. So when you are faced in a situation of conflict, is it possible that you can avoid playing the blame game? And we all know what that is. Can you allow opportunities to feel the Spirit, serve others, show humility, and even emulate Christ in moments of conflict? So think about that as we move through this. Okay. Like I said, I've only been teaching a few semesters. My very first semester, I had an email from a student. I bet you can all think of one right now off the top of your head that you've had in your class.
I could share one.
Oh, yeah? Awesome. I called for examples on the community, and I didn't get very many.
Oh.
I didn't get a few. I think you helped me, actually. Yeah. So these are just 2 sentences from his email, and it's this one. And he says, "I do not understand why I have only been receiving partial credit on my post. I feel like my comments have more than expressed my comprehension on each subject, and I am slightly offended by the low grading on this and other posts." Slightly offended. Yikes. So this is my very first semester teaching Pathway, and I get this email from the student, and I'm going, now what do I do? What do I do? We had a little bit of training before they hired me about conflict resolution and the 5 A's, and so this is kind of what I did. To give you a little bit more background on this example, this was the rubric, before the rubric we use now in Pathway, and there was, there was 8 points available, I think, and they have an initial response due on Wednesday night, and then there were 3 responding posts due on Saturday night. This student was only giving me his initial response, and that's what I was grading, was his 1 response. So naturally, he would not get full credit for that, right? Okay, so he was telling me that his comments have more than expressed his comprehension on each subject, and that, oh, and this is what, he also defined a paragraph for me so that I knew what a paragraph was, because apparently I don't know what a paragraph is.
An English teacher.
Yeah, an elementary school teacher, and he's like, a paragraph is 1 or more sentences, so I should be able to get the grade with 1 sentence. Okay, this is a college course, for one thing, and another thing is he wasn't doing the assignment right. So I had to communicate that back to him in a way that both was merciful and understanding of his situation, but also true to what we have in our assignment. So this is kind of what I did. Like I said, I'm not a professional at this. It's what I do. It works for me. So the 5 A's of conflict resolution. And it looks great because I have more than 5. But these kind of go side by side, same thing. So admit / acknowledge, apologize, accept or adjust, ask, alter, and act. And we'll come back to those, but I'll give you a second if you want to write those down or take a picture. Pictures are easier, huh? And this will be online on the app afterwards if you want to come back and review it.
It's also in the program.
It is in the program, yes.
Yeah.
Does it have all 5 of them outlined?
Uh-huh.
There you go. Or you can email me, and I can. Yeah. So I went looking for where this originated from because I just was given it on a piece of paper from my principal, and all I could find was that in some Christian denominations they have the 5 A's of confession, and they go really similarly close to each other. So I couldn't actually find where it started from. So maybe I'm just making it up. But it works. So okay, good. All right, the first step, admit or acknowledge. And this is my favorite part. And let me tell you why. This is the anger iceberg. And somebody taught me this once, that anger is actually a secondary emotion. When you're faced with a situation of conflict or any kind of situation, when you get anger, it's actually following something else. So our job as the professor or the instructor of a course that gets faced with these emails in our face that I'm so angry with you is to actually break down and get beyond the anger and find out what the real emotion is. And if we can, using the gospel and the power of the Holy Ghost, find what that real emotion is, we can break away that anger. And oftentimes that situation will just dissolve. I've seen it work. Yes?
So what kind of questions would you ask?
What kind of questions?
Mm-hmm.
Or what statements would I say here?
Mm-hmm.
Here's some. Yes.
Well, this reminds me, I've noticed this recently, probably in the last year and a half, when I've been calling in tech support for whatever product, Amazon, TiVo, blah, blah, blah. I'll tell them something's wrong. Oh, the tone of the voice isn't there, but the words are right. Oh, I'm sorry, sir, I bet this is frustrating.
Yeah.
Or I admit that, or I understand that this is a problem and we'd like to help you. So, the voice isn't there, but the words are right.
Right.
So you got to put the emotion behind it.
Right. And oftentimes because we are online, we don't hear the voice.
Right.
We just get the words. Yes.
So you said that the anger is a secondary emotion. How do you find out what the primary emotion is?
It takes time. It takes practice. I usually take a break, step back, and then come back and look at it, and then I pray about it and try and figure out what the real issue is. And even asking them more questions. Are you confused about the syllabus? Is there something else going on in your life right now that's conflicting with this course? So here are some examples of what I might say. I was wrong, or there was a typo, or this is frustrating, or I admit that this is frustrating. I'm sorry, that was not the intention, or any multiple examples of that.
Is it enough to just say, thank you for bringing this to my
Yes,
attention?
yes.
Because what if there really is no, I'm not saying this would be the case all the time, but sometimes there really is no fault on the teacher. It's just they didn't read the textbook right. Like that happens a lot with quiz misunderstandings. So say, well, this is wrong, but then I'll say, but thanks for bringing this up. Let's look at page 90, and it says clearly there.
Yes.
So that's enough.
Yes, that's enough, at least in some situations. Everybody's going to be a little bit different.
Still acknowledge their feelings.
Right.
You said, when that last one, when you said, oh, shoot, just left me. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
You said, what did you say? I think you started out like that. I think thank you for bringing it to my attention. You acknowledge that,
A lot of times I'll start with, I'm sorry that you feel that way.
Right.
So that kind of acknowledges, like, I'm sorry that you're upset. Let's talk about what you're thinking, or and like you were saying, I think always asking more questions helps, because a lot of times somebody rattles off an angry email and it's not as put together or doesn't get at the heart of the issue, like you were saying.
Yes.
Yeah, no, I agree, just reflecting, restating.
Right.
You don't need to make judgments yet, just get them to talk.
Mhm.
Get them to come out.
Okay, sorry, we only have like 10 more minutes, yeah.
That's what I'm gonna ask some more questions, find out what the real problem is.
Right.
So it might be, the paper's all messed up or whatever, but that might not be the real problem.
Right, it's finding what the real issue is and not focusing on the anger. When we focus on the anger, then it just builds. But when we focus on the real situation, it helps to smooth things out. Okay, so my next one is to apologize. And sometimes we have to do this even if we're not wrong. And it's, I'm sorry, there was a typo, or I'm sorry, there is a misunderstanding here, or I'm sorry that your feelings were hurt, and acknowledge that their feelings were hurt in this situation. Don't blame and don't put the fault on anyone in particular. I find that in some situations, if you're gonna put the fault on anything, put it on technology, because technology is perfect, right?
So that looks like don't put the fault on yourself either.
Right.
Don't say, oh no, I'm so sorry, when, as if I did it.
No, just, I'm sorry that there was a misunderstanding. It's not pointing fingers either way. It's just, and it's also not just putting a blanket or a Band-Aid over it. It's acknowledging their feelings and just apologizing for the misunderstanding. The next one's accept or adjust. So I appreciate your email. Thank you for pointing out this mistake. I understand that this could be confusing or difficult, or I was wrong. It's not pointing fingers or blaming other people. And then we do what we can to make it right. So if it means going to your TGL and figuring out why the syllabus has it worded in this way, or submitting a course fix request, this whole step is proof that you're listening to them and proof that you were validating their feelings in the whole thing. This is that special balance of mercy and justice again. We have to help them, but we also have to do our jobs. So that's that's tricky online, but we're gonna talk about.
I would say that one is hard for me because I feel like, I mean, yes, there are times that there was an error, but as you were saying, there are times that I'm like, I'm sorry, you did not do the assignment correctly. Yes. I cannot give you the points for this, and so in that situation, I guess accept or adjust doesn't really seem to apply. Yeah, there.
And then sometimes I don't do all five, and sometimes I acknowledge several times, and sometimes the next one ask is, what would you do? I've only been doing this 2 semesters, so I've come right out and asked my students, if you were in my shoes, how can I change this for future semesters?
Yeah.
What would make more clear sense to you as the student coming from the teacher? And I've had great feedback from my students. Just letting them know that I'm new at this too helps us move together in this journey.
I think that really helps them to see the logic behind why you do things. Because sometimes they have these suggestions, it's like, I can't implement that. But if they actually thought about it, how they would do it, then they see that's not going to work, or that's not really going to teach anybody anything if we, you know what I mean?
Yeah. So, sorry, we're fast. Time is going really, really fast. This one, I have the picture of the girl praying, is because sometimes asking is just something we do, and it's asking for help and finding out how we can help our students, or going to our TGL and saying, I don't understand why this situation has come up. And I've had to do that too, because I'm, again, not perfect at this. And the last one is to alter or act. Go into the course, make adjustments, or submit a request if you can. This one comes forward in those notes from instructors. I've had to tweak mine a couple of times because the way I said it, they assumed that all assignments weren't due until Saturday, and I had to change it again. And so this one is the action. This is the moving forward and what can you do. And sometimes this is behind the scenes and you do it on your own and it's not with that person. So I would like to do an activity. You have your scriptures on your devices, I assume. Go to Alma, and do you remember the interactions between Moroni and Pahoran? Yes. And who can give me a quick background on Moroni and Pahoran? Nobody?
I can do it.
Just real quick.
Moroni and Pahoran?
What's going on there?
Okay, Moroni's out fighting. They didn't have texting back then. And so he's not sure why they're not getting support. They're hungry. That's a huge part of warfare is the supply chain.
Yeah.
They're hungry, maybe they're running low on things, and so Moroni wrongly accuses Pahorn of being a traitor and calls him out. He's frustrated, Moroni. And
People are dying.
yeah, people are dying. Pahorn sounds like is an awesome man, takes the letter, does exactly what we were saying here. I understand you're frustrated. I glory in your, I don't know how to say, I glory in who you are. You're an awesome man.
He acknowledges
Here's what's
him.
going on.
Yep.
Please send help.
Right. Right. So I was going to have you do an activity where we were going to look at chapter 60 and see if you can find those 5 different things in there. And they come up more than once in there. Maybe because we're short on time, I can just give you that as a homework assignment. Is that fair? All right, so go read Alma 59 through 62. 60 is the letter that Moroni is complaining to Pahorn about. And then I think 61 is when he responds back. And you can find them. You can find all of those things. He acknowledges it several times in that letter back. And he apologizes that there was something came up. We can't get to you because somebody's in the way. And then he even asks for help. What can I do to help you further in this? And then they act together in that. So that's your homework assignment, is to go and read Alma 60 through 62 and kind of see if you can find these 5 A's in there somewhere. I also have scriptural insights in Matthew chapter 5, verses 43 through 44. It says, "Ye have heard that it has been said, Thou shalt love thy neighbor and hate thine enemy. But I say unto you, love your enemies, bless them that curse you, do good to them that hate you, and pray for them which despitefully use you and persecute you. For if you love them which love you, what reward have ye? Do not even the publicans the same? And if you salute your brethren only, what do ye more than others? But not even the publicans so. But be ye therefore perfect, even as your Father in heaven which is perfect." And the greatest example of how we should respond to potentially offensive events or situations is our Savior. And in 1 Nephi chapter 19, verse 9, it says, "The world, because of their iniquity, shall judge him to be a thing of naught. Wherefore they scourge him, and he suffereth it. And they smite him, and he suffereth it. Yea, they spit upon him, and he suffereth it, because of his loving kindness and his long suffering towards the children of men." And I also have a wonderful quote from Elder Bednar. "One of the greatest indicators of our own spiritual maturity is revealed in how we respond to the weaknesses, the inexperience, and the potentially offensive actions of others. A thing, an event, or an expression may be offensive, but you and I can choose not to be offended and to say it mattereth not." That comes from October 2006, the talk, and it matters, and thou shalt not be offended, I believe. That's what it is. So it's delicate because we have to choose not to be offended when we get those emails saying, "You are so wrong," but we also have to be able to talk back to them in a way that they can't misinterpret it, or if they do, that we can eventually solve that. Beverly.
I love what you said about in that other, we would so rather deal with the students that are wonderful and do everything right, but what reward do you have, if it's easy, because they already like you and give you strokes. But the trick is to being able to get along with the students that send you annoying emails.
Yeah. So we have, that goes back to that. Can we avoid playing the blame game and allow opportunities to fill the spirit when you're faced in a situation with conflict? I believe we can. It takes time and it takes practice, and it takes the help of our Savior through the atonement to be able to do this. And I would encourage you to do the homework assignment, because Moroni and Pahorn are an excellent example of long-distance communication without face-to-face. And that's what we do online, isn't it? It's a perfect application to what we do today. Tools that you can use. Make sure you pray. Take time, even if it's so much as, "I've received your email, I'm working on an answer for you, please look for that in the next 24 hours. And then take the time that you need to formulate your response and step away from the anger and find out what the real situation is. Even if you're responding back to the student and saying, "I'm not quite sure I understand where your frustrations are coming from," and have them further explain. Refer back to your syllabus and the instructions, TGLs, teaching groups. I've even emailed my teaching groups and said, "What would you do? I have a student who totally did not understand this assignment. They completed all of it, but they did it completely wrong. How could I get help? And my teaching group was awesome. An objective individual, my husband is really good about being a bouncing board or whatever that's called. I give him all these things and he just says, well, what about this? And what about this? And what about this?
I would say with communication, sorry, I know
No,
you're
go ahead.
angry, but it's always, and I encourage my students to do this too. I think it's always smart to have somebody objective read over your emails.
Right.
So sometimes I've had intense conflicts with students, and in the moment I'm just so angry and I'll write this email and then I'll say, okay, you better read this. And my husband will come over and he'll be like, take that out, take that out, you know, and even though in the moment I'm like, no, that deserves to be in there, it's good for me to have that person kind of step back from this, and this is coming across too harshly. And I think if our students did that as well, that would help. So I encourage that, like I'll say, I know in the moment it's really easy to fire off an angry email. Take a day, think about it, have somebody else read it.
Type it up, sleep on it, come back.
Yes, it makes a big difference.
It does.
It really does.
Jim, did you have a comment?
I did. Oh, kind of off that. So there's times, so I taught an online course a couple times years ago, but I had students that were kind of rude sometimes. Some of it was my fault. But one of the things they've been teaching us here, President Clark, at least a couple years ago, was follow the pattern in the New Testament of, go to your neighbor one-on-one. If that doesn't work, bring someone else with you. And certainly that's where our TGLs can come in. If you want to do a conference call with their student in TGL or OCR, get someone else there, and that for some reason that calms the student down, and it helps you too to keep things above board and legit. So, who'd have thought that structures would have good ideas for modern conflict resolution?
Okay, so something just I'm going to leave you with this is that, remember, we're all children of our God, which means we're all unique and we're different, but we've been taught to love one another. So would you ever purposely say or do something to hurt someone that you love? Or would someone that loves you ever do or say something that would purposely hurt you? And remember, to be offended is a personal choice. And as instructors, we participate in a delicate balance of choosing not to be offended by others and also managing appropriate communication. So it's, again, sticking to our job, but also helping them in any way we can. We provide success for our students. So those are my 5 A's. But using these 5 A's, when faced with a sensitive situation, we can avoid playing the blame game, allow opportunities to feel spirit, serve others, show humility, and emulate Christ.